No, but it's actually, despite the fiasco of the cars, it's still an interesting point to remember that even if you have a fascist government and, from where we're sitting now, you can see where it's headed, that doesn't exactly mean that everything is horrible and that they have no policies that make life better, and that at some point the typical German person who's not part of those minorities, like you said before, isn't having the time of their lives. Maybe they are.
Hello guys,
Hi everyone,
I am Waldemar.
and I'm Weronika.
Today we are watching a video called Life in Nazi Germany.
Yes.
It is made by Animated History, and I feel like we watched something from this channel.
I think the channel is called Armchair Historian, actually. Is that not the one? Am I mistaking something? I think it's just...
Armchair Historian.
Yeah. And it's I think Animated History is just a subtitle.
All right.
But
okay.
we did watch a channel that is called Animated History,
Yeah,
so I think that is quite confusing.
Armchair Historian, I think we had some recommendations.
I think so. I actually I did some research the other day, and I was kind of trying to find what people who are fans of Fat Electrician also enjoy, and this was one of the channels that popped up to me a lot. So hopefully that means it's also very high quality, because as you know, we like Fat Electrician a lot. But we will see.
Yeah, I think it's from what I have seen, just scrolling on the timeline, it looks different. It's not the same style of video.
Oh no, it's just like an animation more like oversimplified than Fat Electrician. But we'll see.
Life in Nazi Germany. I will brag a bit. I think I will know most of it. I just finished reading a book by Volker Ulrich, Hitler Downfall. It was the second part. First it was the Hitler
Rise of Evil?
Rise, yeah, and then it was Hitler Downfall. I just finished yesterday, so I think I will know something, but this book doesn't really focus that much on the country, more on the character of Hitler. So I think there may be something new for me.
Yeah, I think I will know a little bit. We've watched some movies, I've read some books from the perspective of the life in Germany as well. So maybe
What books?
The Book Thief.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little about that, and the book that I'm reading now, All the Light We Cannot See.
Mm-hmm.
It's a split. Half of it is from the perspective of a boy who lives in the Nazi Germany.
All right.
He's in the I forgot what it's called. Oh my god, the boys. What's the organization for the boys in Nazi Germany?
Hitlerjugend?
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
All right. Let's check it out.
Yep.
This video is sponsored by Brilliant. More on that later.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Griffin Johnson, the Armchair Historian. Today's video: what was life like in Nazi Germany?
He should have a different Mac. It doesn't suit.
What? Sorry.
Different Mac. He should have a different Mac because it doesn't.
When
suit
one
with the
tries
rest.
to imagine what life was like for the
But it has
average
his
German
merch.
between the years of 1933 and 1945, what comes to mind? Many would likely envision it as a drab, nightmarish, totalitarian dystopia, and in many ways this was true, certainly for the sections of society that the Nazis firmly repressed. But how much different was life like for the Germans who lived up to Hitler's standards? Before we address the life of the average citizen, we must first understand what life was like for minorities, and as can be imagined, the rights of these groups were essentially eliminated. Almost as soon as Hitler took power in 1933, Jewish civil servants such as teachers, professors, engineers, and administrators were excluded from government employment.
I think one important thing to say about all the dictators' rules. All the fascist countries like Nazi Germany, the main problem is that your life could be pretty well until you are out of the margin. When you are inside the group that is put on a pedestal, then it's all fine but in those countries, as the time goes by, this group goes smaller and smaller and smaller, and more groups are suddenly outside. So for a couple of years you could be enjoying all the privileges, but then suddenly let's say you are a Protestant, and now the dictator says that Protestants are the enemies of the country, and now suddenly you are out.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Those are very arbitrary things, and it could be your religion, your race, your profession, or whatever, and all of a sudden the fact that you fit the category in all of different 15 aspects, that doesn't matter anymore.
There is this quote of the German priest that lived in the during Second World War, and before he actually spent the entire Second World War in the concentration camp. And he said, and I will misquote, but first they came for the communists. I didn't protest. I wasn't communist. And then they came for the left socialists. No, like I said, I don't remember quite well.
Paraphrasing.
But the end is at the end they came for me. No one protested. There was no one left, and that's basically how it works. By the way, I recommend you to check out this priest because really interesting character. He was maybe not an enemy, but he was not a supporter, but
Opposer?
Yeah, opposer of Hitler on the height of his regime. So a brave man. And he went to a concentration camp and he spent there 6 years, I think, or maybe 7.
Yeah, I think you told me, but he survived, right? And he lived quite a long life after that.
Yeah. But still, 6-7 years in the concentration camp.
The first few months of Hitler's election, the Nazis used their newly acquired power to orchestrate what would be known as Kristallnacht, or Crystal Night, in which thousands of Jewish businesses, homes, and synagogues were burned or otherwise vandalized, their owners beaten and arrested. By 1941, almost all of Germany's remaining Jewish population, which 10 years earlier had numbered over 500,000, were imprisoned in concentration camps. The Nazis embarked on an ideologically fueled campaign against virtually all minorities and marginal groups of society, including gypsies, homosexuals, Jehovah's Witnesses, and ethnic Slavs. One of the methods used in this campaign was forced sterilization. In the words of Richard Evans in his book, The Third Reich in Power, in essence, the Nazi regime was using sterilization to crush those areas of society that did not conform to the Nazi ideal. Another particular aspect of this campaign that has been written about repeatedly is the Nazis' eugenics program, which sought to systematically breed out those the Nazis deemed Untermenschen or subhuman. For example, state-appointed physicians were authorized and instructed to euthanize children that were considered by the Nazis to be unworthy of life. Up to 100,000 Germans, including 20,000 children, were euthanized between 1939 and 1941. Now that we understand the experiences of those the Nazis persecuted, let's examine how life was for everyday citizens. While the role of men in society under the new regime was not much different from that of the previous one, women experienced a variety of new expectations. The Nazis introduced what they saw as traditional German values for women, which included modesty, dedication to Christian, in this case Nazified values, and most importantly, the production of children, which the Nazis viewed as a crucial component of their plans to expand the German nation. In fact, a civil award, the German Mother's Cross, was established and given to women who bore at least 4 children. In schools, students were taught a curriculum that was designed to encourage discrimination and discourage racial mixing. To quote Richard Evans again, teachers and pupils greet each other at the beginning and end of every lesson with the Nazi salute. The pupils listened to major political speeches on the radio in the school hall. As we mentioned, the primary objective of the Nazi school system was to ensure that the party's ideology became ingrained in the minds of students, something which was intended to produce loyal soldiers for future wars.
Yeah, but it's not just about schools. Mostly it was Hitlerjugend that was doing that, and being member of Hitlerjugend was mandatory since I don't remember which year, but before it wasn't, and then it was, and the propaganda and the subjugation of the minds of the young kids were mostly happening on the Hitlerjugend meetings and Hitlerjugend camps. In school also, of course, but the main organization that was doing this was Hitlerjugend.
Yeah, but it's not like they were disproved at schools or at
no,
a lot of the
not
houses.
Not at all.
Dating all the way back from 1922, the Hitler Youth, and later on its female branch, the League of German Girls, was meant to prepare boys for military service and girls for motherhood. These organizations were incredibly popular in Germany, and by 1939, over 90% of Germany's children were part of the Hitler Youth. During this time, even more innocuous institutions of German society began to take a National Socialist slant, as can be seen with the Positive Christianity movement, which was a state-sponsored program to unite all of Germany's Protestant churches into one national church that would legitimize and support the Nazi agenda. Government, under the direction of propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels, distributed millions of inexpensive radios to the people in order to make sure that important political messages could reach them. These measures, however, often did not produce the desired effect, as most people were only interested in carrying on daily life as it had existed before. Recognizing that most of the German people could not be fully indoctrinated, the government enforced its ideal German state through legislation. For example, it was required for both men and women aged 19 to 25 to commit a 6-month tour of public labor, in which they fulfilled the Nazi concept of a social labor force. Women were then allowed to return home, but men were conscripted into the Wehrmacht, or German military. This provided a steady source of manpower for the ultra-militaristic Nazi state. The Nazis also introduced the Volkswagen, or people's car, which was intended to provide each German household with a vehicle as part of Hitler's campaign to motorize Germany.
In
regards to economics, the great...
You didn't know that Volkswagen was made by Nazi Germany?
I mean, yes, but I didn't know that was the purpose.
Yeah.
So it was supposed to be very affordable?
Volkswagen basically means a car for people. Volks, it's people in German.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And it was created just like the radios that he mentioned. The radios was part of. It was also for propaganda purposes, but on the other hand, it was also just for people to have a radio. You know, to have a cheap radio for everyone, because you didn't have a TV back then. I mean, you could have. I mean, not there was a cinema, but not TV. So the main
form of entertainment was the radio.
Was the radio, yeah. So they wanted to create something like that. Also, they created like vacations for workers, and it was part of the same. Like paid
holiday.
Yeah, it was part of the same policy: cars, radio, vacations, tickets to like theaters, stuff like that. And with the Volkswagen, it was interesting program, and it kind of worked out. But there was this form of savings. You could save some percentage of your salary every month, and after some time you could receive a car. But actually, I think almost no one received a car that way. And basically, all the cars that were manufactured were given to members of the NSDAP party.
How surprising. No, but it's actually, despite the fiasco of the cars, it's still an interesting point to remember that even if you have a fascist government, and from where we're sitting now, you can see where it's headed, that doesn't exactly mean that everything is horrible and that they have no policies that make life better, and that at some point the typical German person who's not part of those minorities, like you said before, isn't having the time of their lives. Maybe they are.
No, the life for many German people were better under the Hitler rule. But it wasn't exactly thanks to Hitler. Like there was this economic crisis on the world everywhere.
Yeah.
Because of the Wall Street crack.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. And
it went very bad for Germany. But by the time Hitler raised power in 1933, all the circumstances behind the economic crisis were already getting rid of. So it was an accident mostly. When he came to power, the economy started to grow.
So it was a coincidence in that he was able to...
Yeah, he also did some things, like he eliminated unemployment, but it wasn't such a miracle. He just put all the people to work on the highways and military.
Oh yeah, so like he used the resources that he had, but he did have the resources again because of the change in circumstances.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Great Depression was taking a disastrous toll on the German people before the Nazis were elected. By 1933, unemployment stood at 35%, and inflation was rampant.
Keep saying the things.
Naturally, the Nazis promised to improve the state of the German economy, something which earned them many votes in the election of 1933. Their first priority was to reduce the dismal amount of unemployment in Germany by initiating large public works projects, such as the construction of canals and the Autobahn, or highway. Hitler boasted his success in spite of the fact that many of the employment statistics that were used excluded significant portions of the population, such as Jews and soldiers. Though the Nazis' economic reforms have generally been considered effective, it took years for the unemployment rate to actually drop to stable levels. Despite promising peace both during and after his election, Hitler would once again involve the German people in a large-scale war. As the need for resources to power the German military grew larger and larger, more countries were subjected to Hitler's conquest, something which escalated the war onto a global scale. As the conflict raged on, it quickly became apparent to most observers, even those within Germany, that the idealistic utopia that the Nazis hoped for would never come to fruition. The sheer number of casualties that the war produced, especially on the Eastern Front, was overwhelming. When defeat finally did arrive, it would take nearly a half-century before life would return to normal, as the country was divided between the democratic West and the communist East, until they were reunited in 1990.
I don't understand why he is focusing on that right now.
One of the scientists who fled Germany in the 1930s was none other than Albert Einstein. Our sponsor for today, Brilliant, allows you to master the kind of problem solving and logic that would have been familiar to Einstein himself. Jumping into science, math, and physics sounds like an extremely daunting task, especially for an armchair historian like yourself, but Brilliant allows you to learn these concepts through fun, bite-sized problems. In all of Brilliant's lessons, there are both visuals and thorough explanations. If you're currently a student or just a lifelong learner, we highly recommend you start your free trial at brilliant.org/armchairhistorian. The first 76 users, the amount of years that Einstein was around, will get 20% off of their first annual subscription.
That's good, actually.
So please support our channel by signing up today.
Yeah, we are always leaving those ads from these channels because, like, it's not our content; it's their content that we are watching. So it only seems fair,
indeed,
to let them play the advertisement to you too.
Yeah, even though I suppose
content.
It's not, most of the time the codes might not be relevant anymore. Maybe sometimes they are, and then you can check it out. Yeah.
I mean, this video was okay, but he said it was about the life in the Nazi Germany, and then he kind of just mentioned some topics. Then he went to something else entirely about the repercussions of Second World War.
It was good, but I was expecting a little bit more of like get in the shoes of a typical German who's not part of one of those minorities, and how does life work for you? Because I'm interested in that. Like, do you support Hitler? Are you scared of what's happening? Are you living in poverty? Are you not living in poverty? But I mean, I still learned a bit with all these programs. I didn't know the one about the Volkswagen. I didn't know about the church, actually. I wasn't aware about the attempts to unify it so that it supports the Nazis. I knew they did, but I didn't know it was like
it was complicated with the church because church was pretty strong in Germany, especially the Protestant church, I think, because in Germany you have Catholics and Protestants.
Yeah. Lutherans, that's what we call it in English.
Most Lutherans. Yeah, and Hitler was not a very religious person. I mean, he wasn't, to be honest. He believed in like a divine power or something like that. I mean, maybe he didn't believe it, but he very often mentioned it. Whenever something went like he wanted. He always said that it was divine intervention, or like the creator is doing favors to him. But the main reason with the church was because he didn't want to attack them too much. There were some Nazi politicians that were very anti-church, and Hitler threw them out of the party because he knew and he understood it very early that making an enemy out of church is complicated at this time, at this moment.
Yeah.
But in the future, he didn't want to have people believing in any religions. He wanted them to have one religion, which was social nationalism.
Yeah.
And but he was pragmatic always, and he understood that at this moment he needs to pose as a defender of Christianity.
Yeah, and as a tool, really, if your country is already made of religious people, it's a nice tool to use to spread your ideology as well, if you're able to do it well.
But he wasn't able to spread his ideology throughout the church.
Well, no, but what maybe not, but what they mentioned even about the women, that they said like church, kitchen, and children. It's easy for those values to be like, okay, then you have to raise little Nazi children because that's what God wants you to do.
Yeah,
It does help a little bit.
Like being Christian didn't oppose what he wanted of people, what he wanted them to do. So it was like a compromise more than anything. It didn't disturb him. So he said, okay, fine. But the church actually was one of the very few organizations that were kind of free in Nazi Germany, and there were some critiques going on. And
like that priest you mentioned.
Like that priest, yeah, but he actually went to concentration camp. But there were others too that, well, maybe they weren't very, opposing him, but they weren't as supporting as other organizations in
Not
the,
like
in
blindly
the country.
following the program of the
yeah.
okay. Yeah, but it wasn't
Especially Catholics. With Protestants, it was easier for him, and Protestants as people who were of Protestant faith were then NSDAP party was more popular in these areas. Wherever in the areas where Catholics lived, it was the popularity was lower.
Do you know why that is?
The Catholics had more of a problem with some of the discriminations, stuff like that.
Okay, that's
it's
interesting.
not like they were like, oh.
Yeah, of course not,
but yeah, the popularity was you could notice some differences.
It's interesting.
All right, guys, thank you for watching with us.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. As always, if you want to watch more of our videos, subscribe, like, and leave some recommendation in the comment section.
And we'll see you in the next video.
Have a nice day. Goodbye.